So this is the last time, I hope you guys were reading, this was the last time that you are going to be reading Gerber. Well, I mean, you'll have to study a little bit, I guess, but you hate Gerber. No, it's like I was saying, she's perfect because she kind of tells you what's going on in the play, and she doesn't say anything frighteningly smart, and then it makes me look smarter. So, speaking of me looking smarter, I found out that if I play these videos to my 3-year-old, knocks her out like in 15 minutes. And that's tough because she can stay up till 1 in the morning, no problem. We got the antidote. At a hand?
All right, yeah, number 5.
Yeah.
It says, I know Mamilius is the narrator of A Winter's Tale, but when you ask what is A Winter's Tale in the play, I couldn't find an answer for that. Well, I have it like
Yeah, you're not supposed to have. Does anyone know? Yeah.
Does it mean fairy tale?
Yeah. It means fairy tale, and there's and then some people say that yeah.
Oh, no.
Is there another question? I think.
Question.
All right, we still need to clean this one up.
I put that it was kind of he was starting to tell a tale of how people live in the shadow of death, always. So.
That works.
I like that.
Yeah. Death is spooky. Yeah.
For one of the questions, it asks about a Greek myth, and I know it was like the myth of her or whatever, but can you also say the myth of Persephone and Demeter, because that's actually the same myth, just different names, because Greek and Roman have different names for gods.
Yeah. Totally. What was your question?
Where's the green road in the Winter Temple?
The seacoast of Bohemia?
Yeah.
The sea.
And then famously, Bohemia doesn't have a seacoast, but then somebody showed that it did at the time or something, and it's one of those.
Pangea things?
It's that other kind of Shakespeare studies that I don't really do. Yeah.
How do we know that the Winter Queen Elizabeth and her husband, the King of Bohemia's little adventure, didn't influence the plot of Shakespeare's play?
Because it happened after the play was written.
Yeah. It's great. She has one of her finest moments. She has another article that's making fun of the kind of historicism, and this showed that Shakespeare's play was causing history instead of vice versa. It was kind of funny. Yeah.
How is Bohemia like Carnival?
Yeah.
Because the people that are lower on the social scale become the higher.
And it's actually it's set up so the central sort of thing that's going on is they're having sort of what we would call a Lord of Misrule ceremony, and you'll see. But yeah, it works pretty well in that. I think you were first.
What is a winter's tale in colloquial usage?
Fairy tale.
You were next.
23. What is Autolycus's just kidding.
Autolycus?
Autolycus's essence, is it that he doesn't have one?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it?
I love it when people answer their own questions.
Well, I was like reading it and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How does the ending flirt with incest?
Does the king doesn't know that it's his daughter, and he contemplates marrying her?
Yeah. It's a nice little creepy moment. It's like, I'd like to bag that. That's his daughter. Zing! All right, and everybody knows what are the 2 myths I asked for?
Pygmalion and Persephone.
Can you explain this a little bit?
Pygmalion is the one where a man creates a statue of ivory of a woman and he prays to Venus or Aphrodite to make her come alive. And
It would be Venus. It was a Roman myth. There's not a Greek analog.
Right. Well, that one. The other myth is Persephone eats a pomegranate seed while in hell in the underworld, and because of that, she's forced to stay there for a part of the year. And so he loses it.
Do you know how she wound up in the underworld to begin with? Yeah. Raped in the old sense. Pygmalion. And the weird thing about the Pygmalion myth is that, well, because you know, Venus makes the statue come alive because she's really into errant sexual behavior. So if you can find yourself in love with something weird, Venus will make it happen. And like, there's no like irony. There's no like, it doesn't end up turning out bad. It turns out great. They lived happily ever after.
What does that teach the children?
Yeah, it's what does that teach the children?
They're real weird society.
Yeah.
What mitigates the tragedy of Antigonus' death?
Antigonus?
Antigonus' death?
Yeah.
The description of it, like, they didn't really, like, make it seem, like, really upsetting, so it's just sort of.
Yeah, exit pursued by bear. Yes, sir.
They made it out to be like a far off romance.
Yeah. Distanced it, made it comic. Those will both work. Exit pursued by bear.
What does Garber say underlies the reunion scene?
Anyone answer that one?
What was the
Oh,
question?
the myth?
What are the myth that Garber say underlies the reunion scene?
It's the
Yeah. The Persephone, Demeter, depending on how you want to roll with it. All right, I think that's all of them, right? Actually cut out Lucio and Pompey and the whole mess. They try to make it a, you know, like a melodrama, I guess. Yeah.
What I thought was very strange was he wasn't talking aside to her. He was literally saying it so that Angelo could hear it. Like, yes, he's coming, I perceive it. Hear me. Yeah, you're coming. Like, I don't know, it was a little weird.
Yeah, I actually I think they did a good job with it because I think they accentuate the incongruity of it, you know, because I mean he does do the same thing kind of performatively at the end, so it's and that's why the Duke gets so mad at him, you know, it's because he keeps turning the high melodrama into a comedy. He's like I like him. I think he's I mean he's annoying. But, so let's go to page 29. Actually, let's go to page 31. We're going to have to crank. So she starts off, and we saw it in the scene, she starts off really just kind of mumbly. Like, we couldn't really hear her. The Duke's just impatient. You know, it's like, come to it, you know. She starts off with these you know, this trite, punish the sin and not the sinner argument. And she doesn't even seem to buy it herself, you know. She's just kind of going through the motions. And then as Lucio points out, she's too cold. And then after Lucio sends her back, you know, because she's about to go, and Lucio sends her back, and then something kind of happens. And let's look at 49. So before she's making an argument about, you know, about judgment in general, and what's happening with her brother. But now she says, yes, I do think that you might pardon him, and neither heaven nor man grieve at the mercy. So she changes what her discourse is about from the topic from being Claudio to being Angelo. Yes. So, and then, so, you know, and then Angelo still kind of standoffish, but can you, if you would, starts talking about the nature of power. And then she kind of starts warming up at about 57. After Lucio, again, says you're too cold. And can somebody read this? Yeah.
Too late? Why no, I, that do speak a word, may call it again. Well, believe this, no ceremony that too great ones longs. Not the king's crown, nor the deputed sword. The marshal's trudgeon, nor the judge's robe become them with one half so good a grace as mercy does. If he had been as you as he, you would have slipped him, but he, like you, would not have been so stern.
So now she's good job. She starts cooking here, right? She's starting to fill her argument. She's getting kind of latched into it, and I would say that she kind of starts warming up. And I don't know if Angela is warming up, but she is, and so what do you think's causing this passion? Is she dwelling on her brother's situation? No, she says, no ceremony to great one long, king's crown, deputed sword, marshal's trudgeon, judge's robe. These are sort of signals of, I don't know, power, potency, as she'll say. And I would like to put forth yet another hypothesis, but what she's doing is she's starting to fantasize about Angelo's power, or the position that he's in at least. And for his part, he still wants her to leave at this point. But then we get the damning. I would to heaven I had your potency on the next page, and you were Isabel. Should it then be thus? No, I would tell what. Sorry. Yeah. So she wants to. This kind of hysterics manifesto of switching places with the dominant Y. And then the weird thing why I started laughing was because it occurred to me just now that she wants to be in his position so she can do whatever she wants to with Isabella. I know there's probably some implications in that. But to keep it out of porn territory, we won't. So, sorry, we kind of got to go fast. We got a lot to cover today. 73. So, and as Lucio points out, that there's the vein. You touch him, there's the vein. And we all have to laugh at that, right? I mean, that's sort of. And why is he saying these dirty jokes to Isabel? I mean, is she like she doesn't really seem like that kind of girl. I mean, is that okay? Can't she just be saying it aside to the audience, maybe?
He's just entertaining himself.
Yeah. And he's kind of and this keeps happening. We'll talk a little bit about this. This keeps happening to Isabella. She keeps getting coached, right? In all of her interactions. Yes, sir.
She's a nun, so they kind of bring out her inner bad girl back on the ships.
I mean, maybe he just doesn't think she'll get it, or yeah. Because he does say earlier that he's really into her being that unlike all of the other virgins, which he makes sport with, that there's something sanctimonious about her that he won't get in. So then, so anyway, Angelo, your brother's a forfeit to the law, and you but waste your words. Can I get a passionate reading starting at 73, Isabella? Yeah. This should be good. And alas,
Alas, alas, why all the souls that were forfeit once, and he that might the vantage best have took, found out the remedy. How would you be, if he, which is the top of judgment, should but judge you as you are? Oh, think on that, and mercy then will breathe within your lips, like man you made.
All right. Awesome. Well, first of all, there's our O, and we should be all like every time we see an O, our ears should be pricking up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. The O face. And but now she's imagining Angelo in the place of God, or vice versa, and she's even getting anatomical on that ass, right? We'll breathe within your lips, like man made new, and yeah, I said anatomical on that ass. I'll say it again. But then after this, she kind of starts treating him like God. But and then a little bit below, when after the I well said, Angelo talks, and he says, "The law hath not been dead, though it hath slept." those many had not dared to do that evil, if in the first it did, edict and fridge had answered for the deed. Now 'tis awake. Just like black vengeance. And then he keeps saying this. This always cracks me up when it happens a lot when the kings issue the sort of performative speech act. Be satisfied, be content, as if the power of the king, that's sort of the ultimate fantasy of the power of the king to say to the pleading maiden, be satisfied. I mean, there's a fantasy of power, right? Not to get all pornographic again. But so on 110, Isabel, she's excellent to have a giant strength, but tyrannous to use it like a giant. After the O, and then by 110 through 124, can I get yet another passionate reading? I want to see what kind of passionate readings we can elicit from Isabella here.
Is it the great men?
Yeah.
Okay. Could great men thunder as Jove himself does? Jove would ne'er be quiet. For every pelting, petty officer would use his heaven for thunder. Nothing but thunder, merciful heaven, thou rather with thy sharp and sulphurous bolt splitst the unwedged and gnarled oak than the soft myrtle. But man, proud man, darest create, play such fantastic tricks before high heaven as makes the angels weep, who with our spleens would all themselves laugh mortal.
Thank you. And then Lucio, of course, to him went, she will relent. He's coming, I perceive it. So this is the thing so Lucio's warmed up at any rate. But why, merciful heaven, thou rather with thy sharp and sulphurous bolt splits the unwedgeable and gnarled oak. Oh, come on. That's not a coincidence. So this gets so this is she's just fantasizing about God and his omniscience and his omnipotence and his ability to split the gnarled oak. And then, and she's we've seen she's conflating this gnarled oak splitting power with Angelo. But and then gives Angelo a way to play that role. And like with other great men, as we continue, Angelo can just with saints like great men, and so she's putting Angelo on this divine thing, and then of course juxtaposing it with the angry ape of somebody that just uses whatever power he has, so and then creates the comic situation of it, right? Because she's wow, I turned to the wrong page. And so the options are, you can jest with saints and be in on the triangulated joke, or you can be like an angry ape, be the butt of the triangulated joke. So what do you do to jest with the saints? You can either use your power like an angry ape, or not. Well said. All right, well, mercy is actually paradoxically the way that Isabel codes power. To have power and to use it is to be an angry ape. To have the power to split the gnarled oak and to not, that's divine. That's power. That's what she wants. That's the thing. And so for Isabella, mercy equals potency, or potency equals mercy. And then she gets herself all riled up, and so Angelo even responds. She speaks into the sense that with my sense breeds with it, and everybody laughs. So obviously you get it. And so basically it's like, maybe I kind of am like God, which is a funny thing, because and then much to Lucio and Angelo's disappointment, she kind of deflates the whole thing, right? Famously, as Lucio says, "You've marred all else." What did he do to mar all else, or what did she do to mar all else? offers prayers. So she's obviously confused herself, and she thinks she's actually talking to God here, right? Because that's how she's going to bribe him. She says it's going to bribe him, and Lucio and even Angelo are just like, oh, okay, well, because he gets the idea of getting bribed sparks Angelo's interest, but the idea of getting prayers, I think that maybe he had something else in mind. But anyway, she's got him completely confused with God. So it seems that Izzy warms before Angelo does. And she does so by fantasizing about Angelo having the potency, mercy, of Jove. And she says Jove because Jove, this was an on-again, off-again thing. But depending on the ever-shifting laws, you couldn't say God on stage, because it was either blasphemy or too piousness, depending on the shade of Puritan that was Lord Chancellor at the time. And so I submit that what tempts Angelo is actually Isabella's arousal, or her fantasy about him, and his arousal responds to what he perceives as a cue of sexual interest. And he's not quite right. I mean, she is aroused, but it's not sexual interest per se, right? Okay. So they've replicated this study, like guys famously overinterpret anytime like a girl smiles at them or doesn't throw something at them or doesn't tell them to F off. They think that it's a expression of sexual interest. Oh, guys. But dude, she didn't punch me. It's the same thing as propositioning. So I mean, this begs the question that if Izzy is so aroused by Angelo, why doesn't she respond to his sexual proposition? So I mean, there is you can't say that her fantasy of getting her gnarled oak split isn't sexual in a certain sort of way, right? I mean, there's something about it, as I keep going back to Saint Teresa getting pierced by Michael's golden shaft. I mean, there's something sexual to it, right? And I call this the hysterics paradox, right? And you should write down the hysterics paradox because it's a useful thing. So she's attracted to Angelo because of his imagined potency. But for Isabella, the signal of that potency is restraint or mercy, but not indulging in that potency, right? So to not restrain that potency and to use it makes you the angry ape instead of the austere god. So what it comes down to is to express sexual attraction is to ruin her sexual fantasy. Because as soon as you're just an angry ape that does stuff like that, then you're no longer the god that has the power that she's sexually attracted to. Well, that sucks. And I think that you'll find, if you ever take the time to ponder your friends of friends, you'll find that many people have a bit of the hysteric about them, and not just women and girls and stuff. For example, Angelo, whose desire works the same way, only backwards. Let's go to page. We are on page 35. So Isabella's erotics works to arouse desire and then forcibly restrain it. That's what she's doing within herself. But Angelo is also attracted to Izzy's impenetrability, because as he says, it is, maybe we should read this. Can I get an Angelo? All right. From the, at 162. It's a long one.
From thee, even from thy virtue. What's this? What's this? Is this your fault or mine? Is this her fault or mine? The tempter or the tempted? Who sins not? Ha, not she, nor doth she tempt. But it is I, that lying by the violet in the sun, do as the carrion does, not as the flower, corrupt with virtuous season. Can it be that modesty may more betray our sense than woman's lightness, having waste ground enough? Shall we desire to raise the sanctuary and pitch our evils there? Oh, fie.
Okay, that's actually will do. So it's the idea of, thank you. It's the idea of, like modesty and purity is more arousing to Angelo than sexual availability. And we've talked about a number of reasons for this, but I think in this context we can kind of look at it as just sort of being very similar to the thing that that Isabella wants. But he's not, unlike Isabella, he's not into the whole restraint bondage trip. And he knows that to, as he puts it, raise the sanctuary would make her uninteresting after her sanctuary was raised. So again, we see the two different approaches to confronting desire. He doesn't want to desire her. He wants that gone. So to raise her sanctuary is to make her no longer the object of fascination, so he can get on with his life. But Isabella's the exact opposite, right? She wants to preserve that. She's like, no, don't screw it up. She wants her desire, and she wants kind of nothing to do with it, but she wants it to be intact. Okay, 39. So this is where she comes back, and this is I'm sorry, it's really hard not to laugh. Okay. So I've already offended 2 people today, and then I made a joke too soon about the marathon thing last class. So. I really don't have a good sense of these things. So anyway, Isabella comes back in, and her first words, "I am come to know your pleasure." Do you remember who said I have come to know your pleasure before? Yeah, to the Duke, right? So so word for word, she repeats what Angelo said to the Duke in 1:1. So we kind of have this, Angelo is to the Duke as Izzy is to Angelo, kind of relationship. So and then creepy Angelo can't just say it. This is something that Isabella and Angelo also have in common. They can't get to the fucking point. But I mean, I guess that's kind of the comedy. And then the come on of all come ons. Give up your body to such sweet uncleanness. Yeah. Yummy. And then she says, "Sir, believe this, I had rather give my body than my soul." So if we're going to take that literally, which incidentally Angelo, who's no privy to the inside jokes going on around him, does not. But I mean, that's sort of, yes.
He thinks that she's flirting with him.
Well, but I mean, what does she say? I'd rather give my body than my soul. So just if you take away the theological scaffolding, she's just like, so but this whole discourse as Angelo points out here on 41, "Nay, but hear me, your sense pursues not mine." Well, whose sense isn't pursuing who? Either you are ignorant or seem so crafty, and that's not good. So and I mean, does Isabel know what she's doing?
No.
I mean, I think it's an open question. I don't know. She's women always, they famously have a very interesting relationship with their own desires. I know that only because I'm such a, as you know, deep fan of trash romances. I figure, if you want to figure out the opposite sex, enjoy their emotional porn. But Isabella's reaction to this, and this goes to her, okay. Her relationship to knowledge and her desire graph. What does she say? Right after Angelo says, "So crafty and that's not good." "Let me be ignorant." This is Desdemona's trick too, right? No! All right, well, at least we're laughing at something. And then Angelo hypothetically lays out a hypothetical situation. Again, why can't he just say it? So say there's a guy that's going to die, but his sister, let's call him sister, can keep him, the guy that's going to die, from dying if she, let's just call her, I don't know, Isabella, sleeps with the guy that's got the power to forgive him. Let's call him Angelo. And then we get this lovely thing. All right, I'm going to do this one because I've been practicing it. All right, 42. Actually, maybe if I do this, I won't be able to regain my composure for the rest of class. So, what would you do? He says, as much for my poor brother as myself. That is, were I under the terms of death, the impression of keen whips and wear his rubies, and strip myself to death as to a bed that longing have been sick for. Ere I yield my body up to shame. So, and then the key here, as I said, on the Mary's traumatized.
My favorite part of this is you have it recorded.
Yeah, you'll see who's laughing when I get my call to Hollywood. So, as I hint on the reading questions, the key word here is ear, which means before. So everything that she says, she wants to be under the terms of death, getting the impression of keen whips, stripping herself to death as to a bed, before. So this is actually the conditions of her having sex. She's like, well, if you're willing to do all of this. It's basically just this fantasy where she's, tortured, raped, and then killed. And Angelo, for his part, is as oblivious to this as he says that Izzy is oblivious to his innuendo. And then she talks a little bit later about dying forever on 105 through 108. And then, I think you do the pun on death that was so common then, and she's actually got this, death is eternal orgasm thing. And she's got some issues. So this begs the question, does this mean that Izzy wants to be raped and murdered, kind of like Desdemona? Is anyone willing to say yes? I don't think so. My take is actually probably to the of everyone, and also, but seriously, I don't. I think that this actually explains her aversion to sex, because if this is what she thinks sex is like, then if I thought that's what sex was like, I wouldn't want anything to do with it. That's the last thing. I don't want to be, whatever, biological urges or whatever. It's got nothing. I don't want that. So it explains her restraint. I'd be perfectly happy dying a virgin if that's what sex entailed. There's a great Futurama on that, right? Has anyone seen that with Zoidberg, the lobster? They go to the planet for the big mating ritual, and then he can't score because he's an inferior male. But then so they go and have like this big sex party, but then afterwards they all die after they have sex, and so it turns out that he got to live. So they've got this decision on if you reproduce or live, and then Fry so I don't know what I would do. So and then the great believe me on my honor, my words express my purpose, which now let's back up a little bit, because this is good too. where Izzy, I the glass, when Angela accuses women of being frail. And, but even before that, this is really important. Oh, pardon me, my Lord, it oft falls out, to have what we would have, we speak not what we mean. So, another little Desdemona, sort of a slip of admitting to duplicity, right? Which is not a good thing, or is it? They're all actors, so it's a good thing when you're acting, right? You're a really lousy actor if you only keep playing yourself. A la most of the big Hollywood actors. But I something do excuse a thing I hate for the advantage of that I dearly love. So, well, I mean, maybe she is, maybe she's not. But this eagerly admitting to frailty, like eagerly, eyes the glasses where they view themselves, which were as easy broke as they make forms. Women, help heaven, men their creation mar and profiting by them. Nay, call us 10 times frail, for we are soft as our complexions are, and credulous to false prints. So this is obviously kind of a tender spot for her. Her frailty is something that she dwells on. Like she's a poor critter. And we're just going to have to keep going because we're running out of time. God, this always happens. Only on the interesting class. The boring ones, anyway. That's not really important. 144 plus, or 145 plus. I know your virtue has a license in it, which seems a little fouler than it is to pluck. So she doesn't want to believe that this is really happening. And I argue it's to preserve her fantasy Angelo, which Angelo's declaration, believe me on my honor, my words express my purpose. And then, ha! So that's the laughter of she's now laughing at the angry apes, right? Angelo's no longer God. Angelo's the angry ape, and she's laughing, jesting with the saints, with the ha. And she will no longer harbor any conscious or unconscious fantasies about Angelo. He's failed. He's fallen. So we go on the next page. Her last talk, she says, all to my brother, though he hath fallen by prompture of the blood, yet he hath in him such a mind of honor, that had he 20 heads of tender down on 20 bloody blocks, he'd yield them up before his sister should her body stoop to such abhorred pollution. Well, now she switches this impossible guy fantasy to her brother, who she expects would die 20 times to preserve her virginity. So, with the hysterics thing, is somebody's got to be the capital F father. So it wasn't Angelo, so now she's going to Claudio. Let's go to 47. So, this would have been a good scene to watch, too, because this is awkward. Isabella comes with comforts. Now, sister, what's the comfort? Why? As all comforts are, most good indeed. You're going to get killed. But you're going to heaven. And Claudio's like, well, okay. And then Isabella gives him the possibility of getting out, and I just want to say, none but such a remedy as to save a head, to cleave a heart in twain. Now that's an interesting. So to save a head could be maidenhead or a head. And I don't want to go there. We'll just talk too long about it. We've got to get through this. We've got a test on this, Yeah, and then the death versus unwanted sex dilemma. We've talked a little bit about that. Claudio still has no idea what's going on, but he knows what he's supposed to say on 82 through 85 because the Duke has been coaching him. If I must die, I will encounter darkness as a bride and hug it in my arms. So there's a possible little rape entendre there too, right? Because he could be grasping death as if it were his bride or as if he were the bride. So it's kind of like getting raped by death, which you could do an interesting thing with if you wanted to. And then that I put here in my notes basically that he'll make sweet love to death, or get raped by tomato, and then after he mans up in this way, Isabella's, there spake my brother, there's my father's grave, did utter forth a voice. So she's impressed with this superhuman stoicism, right? And so she characterizes her brother's voice as being ventriloquized. Is that a word? As if he were being ventriloquized. It has to be. Ventriloquized by the dead father, who she absolutely approves of. Interesting. So, but, shortly after, she tells Claudio of this possible way out, and this Friar Dukes be absolute for death argument gets thrown out the window because the silver lining of hope makes the idea of death unbearable. So remember the colostomy principle? This is why you never want to give people hope. It makes them very unhappy. Death is a fearful thing, saith Claudio, who was just saying that death is something that he wants to make sweet love to. So, and then we get this 118, I but to die, and we know not where to lie in cold obstruction and to rot, the sensible warm motion to become a needed clod. And I don't want to read it all because we're running out of time. Mark this. I've got a feeling it's going to be on the final. In thrilling region of thick-ribbed ice to be imprisoned in the viewless winds and blown with restless violence round about the pendant whirl. So he really freaks himself out with this explicit and richly rendered description of death. I mean, he's all scared, and Isabella, alas, alas, and then he falls. Sweet sister, let me live. What sin you do to save a brother's life? Nature dispenses with the deed so far that it becomes a virtue. Can I have Isabella? Passionate now. Oh, you beast. That wasn't me, man.
Oh, you beast! Oh, faithless coward! Oh, dishonest wretch! Wilt thou be made a man out of my vice? Is it not a kind of incest to take life from thine own sister's shame? What should I think? Heaven shield my mother played my father fair, for such a warped slip of wilderness ne'er issued from his blood. Take my defiance. Die. Perish. Might but my bending down reprieve thee from thy fate, it should proceed. How pray 1,000 prayers for thy death, no word to save thee.
Thank you. So, that was wonderful. This neighbor brother dilemma. That's question number 1. So, I think it's kind of boring. Question number 2 is, I think, the more interesting one. Is it reasonable to expect Claudio not to ask? To at least throw it out there under these circumstances. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can actually claim either way whether or not Izzy's doing the right thing. I mean, critics have famously or historically split on this issue. But I feel pretty strongly that whether or not that this response is a little bit disproportional in its vehemence to Claudio's moment of weakness. And this kind of incest thing. Now, what's the logic of the kind of incest thing?
Her virginity is going towards him to benefit him.
Yeah. So she takes to be made a man literally, as in to be given life, whereas in the colloquial term, then is now to be made a man is that sexual experience is a kind of social right that supposedly turns a boy into a man. So as a boy is made a man through the shame vice of the prostitute or prostitute substitute, then Claudio would my mom would be proud of that. And Claudio would supposedly be made a man through the prostitution of his sister. Is she insane? So something like that Shylock that you guys haven't read about that you probably will encounter the play at some point in your life. He also does the Jew of the Merchant of Venice. Is all about the law, and the idea is that mercy is supposed to supplement the law, and that was supposed to be what Jesus did to them. But anywho, so taking things too literally is something that's sort of frowned upon by the culture or whatever that means. Never mind. Anytime I say frowned upon by the culture, just mentally slap me. What a stupid thing to say. As if a culture could frown. That's just lazy thinking. That's all that is. But the invocation of the father here, and Claudio fails the measure to the father of the ideal dead dad, kind of like Othello. Anyway, like Othello, her faith in everything is dependent on the faithfulness of somebody else. Right? Her whole world picture falls apart when Claudio fails her. You know, just like Othello. You know, she's like, oh my gosh, he cheated on me. I'm gonna lose my job. Who I am. Hysteric. So like Angelo, Claudio fails. So we get this Izzy's fantasy chain of failed dominant wives. So first of all, I was her father. I was calling Dad. So how did Dad fail her?
He died.
He died. And then God, through the nunnery, you know, he wanted to
Wasn't strict enough.
wasn't strict enough. Angelo, he had the potency, he had the thing, but
He was a monkey.
angry ape. And then Claudio, who had the capital offense nerve that she's going to pray for him to die and never to be spared because he did scared to death. That's fair. La 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 la. So yeah. So none of her Y candidates are superhuman. Death, lust, and fear gets the better of everyone. And then we talked about that she never has any idea of her own, never acts on her own volition. She performs according to a series of directors that give her scenarios, if not scripts. And who are the three directors? Well said. Lucio, and then the bed trick thing.
Vincent,
Yeah, Vincentio, and the last one, Mariana. So as we know from our hysteric triangle, she's a good hysteric. She doesn't have the faintest clue what she wants, let alone how to get it, and she's just willing to listen to anyone with an idea. Hey, we might make it okay. So let's get this thing out of the way. So we got Izzy, Desire 1, Desire 2. All right. So Desire 1 I have Daddy. You. Desire 2, restraint from fulfilling that desire. Relationship with knowledge, let me be ignorant. I'm not even going to write the problem because the problem is always conflicting desires. And then solution, death or maybe marriage. If the Duke is Y enough, marriage should work, right? So, so what does the Duke do to kind of to make himself Y enough? All right. So he gets real mystiphilistical. And deep and dark and engineering behind the scenes, kind of making himself. But he also orchestrates a particular relationship that Isabella has to him. So first, he makes her declare herself a whore in front of everyone, right? So if I'm a Christian, what's one of the first steps I've got to do or an alcoholic? What's the first thing I have to do? Yeah, I have to admit I have a problem. I am a sinner. I am a sinner before the Lord. We are all sinners. I'm Paul. I've sinned more than the rest of you bastards combined. And that's why Jesus loves me. So, and then makes her perform her eagerness to turn the other cheek with the humiliation / of publicly defending her assailant, Angela. And then he he evokes his absolute potency, and then demonstrates he has the ability to just off with their heads. But then what does he do? Yeah, he forgives everybody, and we remember now. What's Isabella's fantasy of power? Yeah. So whoa, that would probably do it, right? So basically, Vincentio makes Izzy do everything she would have to do to get into heaven. And if that's good enough to fulfill her idea of why, I mean, he even speaks through the friar like God would, right? And so the big famous question with Measure for Measure, how do we read her famous silence? Well, I ask this. Have we seen her acquiesce? Think small acquiesces. Think like agreeing to Lucio Duke Mariana. Yeah, how does she acquiesce? Does she say, "I'll do it"? No, she just does it, right? On the other hand, have we seen her refuse? Now, that's a little bit different, right? She doesn't just, "Oh, okay, well," no. No, it's the end of the world. It's cataclysm. I can't believe you did this. How dare you ask me to save your life? So, what do you think that not saying anything would be more in line with what Izzy's doing here at this point? Yeah, I would think that's how I would direct it. I think that there's no way about it. She would just silently get married, just like she performed for everybody, because she's the happy hysteric place of catering to the desire. Okay. So just a few last things. Is it a comedy? Ends with marriage. So we need a descent into the green world or Lord of Misrule. We have that, right? A miracle to save the day. Remember how a true comedy needs a miracle to save the day. What's the miracle that saves the day?
The Duke is everywhere. The Duke is everywhere.
Yeah, that's miraculous, but what's the miracle? This is what keeps the Duke from actually having successfully engineered everything, because that would have been a melodrama. There's a miracle that happens. Just something that appears out of the blue. Yeah, Ragazine's head. Just, oh no, we're in trouble now because we can't kill Barnadine or whatever his name is. Can't kill Claudio, but we need a head. Funny you should ask. I happen to have a head of an evil pirate that died of natural causes. And then, of course, it's tending toward, again, I don't want to say tragedy, I want to say melodrama. It's tending toward melodrama at the end because it's going toward a happy ending. But frickin' Lucio keeps making penis jokes, right? And so it's really hard to keep, and man, this just infuriates that dude. I love him. So I think it's kind of the reverse of Macbeth. It's Macbeth's kind of a problem tragedy that's haunted by farce. And this is a problem melodrama haunted by farce. Well, and a problem comedy that's haunted by tragedy. And it's I think it's a good play. Do we like it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My favorite, so.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a hoot. And so we've got now. I can't believe we got through the lecture. Yay, Daniel. Yeah. So Winter's Tale, which is happens to be my favorite Shakespeare play. A lot of old Shakespeareans. I'm not an old Shakespearean just yet, but it's kind of like a fairy tale. So some people think that it's dumb, but it's not. It's really good. And it's not. It's totally not. So yeah, have a nice weekend.